For more on this, we're joined by Dr Vusumuzi Sibanda from the African Diaspora Network. He's the chairperson for this organization. Dr. Sibanda, good to have you on the program this evening. So, news of children being intercepted at the Beitbridge border post, immediately this does trigger concern, especially across the region. From an Africa diaspora perspective, give us a sense of what this incident tells us about the current state of migration pressure, especially facing families in Southern Africa.
Thank you very much, and good evening to the listeners, and good evening to you. Look, unfortunately, I think like the commissioner, the spokesperson for BMA was saying that this is something that is recurring, and more often than not, especially during the festive holidays, there is a lot of traveling that takes place because there are parents that are resident in South Africa and work in South Africa, and as a result, you've got children that are likely to join them during this period, and the bulk of those children, probably come in, they are smuggled into the country because of documentation, related issues, that might not be very easy, especially South Africa that observes the fact that children must not, travel without parents, and where both parents are not involved, there must therefore be an affidavit and a consent from the other parent. I'm not sure if you remember, we had just a similar, incident, sometime in December, where, a mother took a child from South Africa and smuggled that child into the UK through Zimbabwe. So we've got very serious concerns about children being smuggled every now and again. And South Africa at this moment is the only country that seems to have relatively more stricter, regulations that protect, children and that are more compliant with human rights related issues, unlike, the neighboring countries, which is going to make this very difficult for South Africa because collaboration becomes quite problematic.
Yeah, I want us to crystallize that point. As someone who works very closely with the diaspora communities, how common is it for children to be sent across borders alone? And what circumstances usually drive families to take such risky decisions?
Well, it is very, very common. It is a very common, scenario because you've got parents that, a lot of parents that are resident and working in South Africa. Some of them are irregular in the sense that they do not have documents, and some of them are regular, but they cannot afford, to travel and bring their children because they are at work. And as a result, they then, get or employ the services of, these transporters to bring the children in here, including, I suppose, the buses. So it is a very prevalent problem, and it is caused by the fact that parents want to join at least their children or to have their children over at least one holiday, preferably, and normally the festive holidays. So it is something that is quite common, and it unfortunately militates against the laws that we have in South Africa, where children cannot be seen to travel, without being accompanied by their parents, and they have to be, with their parents. And while these other countries, particularly Zimbabwe, and other SADC countries, do not have those kind of laws.
Yeah. So the involvement of both the Border Management Authority, or the BMA, and SANDF as well, it does suggest a securitized response. Do you believe security-led interventions are compatible, especially with child-centered protection approaches?
Unfortunately, they are not. There is a serious problem there because obviously one would obviously understand that BMA and the soldiers are ordinarily doing their work because they are trying to control migration. And unfortunately, because in the process, they get to encounter, minor children. And obviously, because they are the first, point of contact, with people that are involved in irregular migration. So what basically happens is therefore that, this leads to a situation where, these, for example, officials have got to deal with the children and ultimately, lead those children to the relevant authorities like social, development, services. So that is where I think the problem really gets in. But it is, in my understanding, not their intention, obvious to deal with that. And it is unavoidable. But obviously the trauma that the children, are then exposed to during this particular process, it becomes unbearable.
Yeah. Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening. He's from the Africa Diaspora Network, chairperson for this organization, giving us a sense of that movement of children between borders, notably the one at Beitbridge, a border post between South Africa and Zimbabwe.